Heroic barbell. Time to get this weight, yo, it's heavy, can't you tell? Heroic barbell. Time to get this weight, yo, it's heavy, can't you tell? Heroic barbell.
Hey guys, welcome back to Heroic Barbell. This is Andrew Torrance. Let's talk about strongman for a second. Strongman is one of my favorite sports to watch, no duh. And in my opinion, in the last few years, the sport is starting to get stale. And what I mean by that is that you start to see the implements are becoming more standardized and everything's becoming more uniform. Every competition has the same type of log, the same type of axle, the same type of deadlift bar, things like that. And to me, that's a little against what the original spirit of the sport of strongman was supposed to be. You're trying to find the world's strongest man, and you're trying to show people watching the sport who actually is the strongest, okay? And a lot of times people don't relate well to barbells and standard weights as far as how much weight makes someone strong. In my opinion, the sport needs to get back to its roots where the events were different every year. They were usually based around wherever the competition was held. So, if the show was held in Japan or Thailand, then you had a rickshaw race with a bunch of weight in the rickshaw or something like that. You did things that the culture recognized as hard. With that in mind, I have made a list of my top 10 new events that I want to see in strongman at all levels, okay? So let's get started. Okay, so at number 10, I have a tree rockover squat. So, you guys may or may not have heard of the Steinborn rockover squat. Basically what that involves is you have a barbell that has the round spheres at the end, and it's on the floor. You have to pick up one end and get it on your shoulders and then rock over and squat with it. And you have to set it back down without dropping it. So I would like to see the world's strongest men be able to do this with a tree, with a log. They already press logs that are in excess of 400 pounds. I don't see why they couldn't squat a tree that weighs 800 pounds or something like that. The amount of trunk power and strength that would be required to do this will just show how much raw, pure strength that the strongmen have. Okay, coming in at number 9, I have a hammer throw. Now, if you watched The Strongest Men in History with Brian Shaw, Nick Best, Robert Oberst, and Eddie Hall, then you saw them throw a hammer that kind of looked like Thor's hammer, and they threw it for distance. And they just sort of underhand chucked it. And I think that this should become a regular event in strongman. I think that it looks cool, it looks badass. You're throwing Thor's hammer. You can call it Thor's hammer throw if you want. And I don't see any reason why the strongest men in the world shouldn't be able to easily throw a hammer, a heavy hammer, 50 to 80 feet. Number 8, I have a motorcycle overhead press ladder, okay? Now, I'm not talking about just a motorcycle frame. I'm talking about the whole motorcycle. These things can vary in weight, but that's why I have it as a ladder. It's because you can have some lighter motorcycles at the start and a heavier one at the end. And now, in the past, they've done Viking presses at World's Strongest Man and the such that have had motorcycles as the load on the Viking press, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about a straight-up motorcycle sitting in front of you. It is sitting on the floor. You pick that thing up and press it over your head, okay? You are damn strong if you can do that. Coming in at number 7, I have the Carnival Hammer. Now, if you guys have ever been to a fair, or you probably haven't been to a fair because it's 2020, and if you're watching YouTube, the odds that you've ever gone to the county fair are kind of low, I would think. If you've seen on TV, the cliche county fair or carnival, you've got this hammer, sledgehammer, and a contraption that goes up and rings a bell if you hit it hard enough. And I would love to see this done as a strongman event to see who can raise the apparatus the highest with one strike of a hammer. I think that this will be badass. It'll be very classic. very retro, and I'm a sucker for that kind of thing sometimes. And I think that it'll show the layman how strong strongmen really are. At number 6, I have a hand strength medley. So I grew up in church, and in church, every now and then, we would have someone come to church claiming to be the strongest man in the world. And the way they showed us that they were the strongest man in the world, and, they did this so that they could teach us about Jesus, which is great. But they would claim to be the strongest man in the world, to sort of get your attention, right? But they would do things like, they would take nails, right? And they would put the nail into a board with their bare hands, okay? They might put like a cloth around their hand just to protect it, but, they were driving a nail into a wooden board with their hands. And they would do things like bend frying pans, which a lot of you have seen before, obviously. So I want to see, and okay, here's another good one. How many of you have seen the cartoon of Kingpin from Spider-Man where he's holding an apple and he just crushes it in his hand like that? How freaking awesome would it be to see Brian Shaw just take an apple and crush it in his hand? How sweet would that be? You would be amazed. It'd be like, that's a bad motherfucker right there, okay? So, I want to see a medley of sorts with this kind of stuff. I want to see a apple crush going into a frying pan fold, frying pan bend. I want to see, it's kind of like, you could take a spring, like, kind of like the Hercules hold tests grip strength this way. I want to test how strong you are here. So let's take some sort of spring and push it together and have the strongman hold it like that. Because that's going to test, hand strength, but it's also going to test how long you can squeeze and hold something in your hands together like that, right? Okay. All right, guys, we are on number 5, and this is where things really start to get crazy. I have a wild imagination, so be ready. Number 5 is the car frame throw, all right? I'm thinking of a hammer throw, like an Olympic hammer throw, but I'm thinking of the athletes doing it with a car frame, and you can, I would say it'd probably be pretty hard to do it with the chassis of the car and, the cab and all that intact, but if you just took the actual frame, the flat frame, and you threw that for distance, Olympic hammer style, that would be one of the craziest things to see, in my opinion. The name alone will sound insane because you're going to call it the car throw, right? So there, I'm getting pictures of like the Incredible Hulk, like throwing cars in the middle of New York City, right? And that's the image that lay people are going to have. Now, by the time the event starts, they're going to realize, okay, they're just doing the frame, they're not doing the whole thing, but that's still impressive. And the name of the event is what gets them to start watching the sport. At number 4, I have a car bench press. Okay. Should the strongest man in the world be able to lift a car off himself if he's being crushed by one? I think yes. So I want to see car bench press. You can do a max or you can do it for reps, but basically it'll be like a car deadlift. You just put the car on top of the person in a safe way. You can have safety guards and all that. Give them a bar to hang on to and just let them go at it, I think that would be amazing to see. And again, the name, the idea behind the event is what's going to appeal to people, and it will romanticize the sport. At number 3, I have a stone uphill. So, picture this. You have a boulder that is about as tall and as wide as the athlete themselves. I want to see that athlete roll that boulder up an incline from a start line to a finish line. And I want to see it done for time. Now, this event would probably be the most dangerous on this list. But, I think that you could find a way to do it safely. I think that you could find a way to, stop the boulder from rolling back on the athlete. But, I think that this would be one of the more crazy tests of strength that you could have. Is just someone taking a giant rock and rolling it up a hill. Funny story, I knew a girl in college, my freshman year, who was a thrower for the track team. And she was insanely strong. And her and a couple of her teammates rolled the base for a snowman as a snowball up a big, probably 70-degree hill at school, and that was very interesting to see. It was very, 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 very strong. All right, moving on to number 2. The medleys, the loading medleys in strongman are getting a little old. I said earlier that in strongman things are starting to get a little bit too standardized and normalized, and you can really see that in the medleys, because most medleys are sandbags, kegs, maybe sometimes you have a natural stone or an anvil, but things are too similar. Things are always the same. You're always moving the same implements as a strongman nowadays, and I think that needs to change. Nobody knows what it feels like to move a sandbag, but you know what? Everyone knows what it feels like to try to pick up and move? Refrigerators, mattresses, and lawnmowers. I want to see a full-size refrigerator, king-size mattress, and riding lawnmower loading medley. You have to start at the start line, pick up each thing, and take it to the finish line and load it. And the size of these objects and their weight will obviously make them very heavy and awkward to move, especially think that a regular size riding lawnmower, the strongest men in the world, will be able to pick up and move with. So I want to see that. And again, the sheer size of these objects is going to attract people and be like, oh my god, this guy is moving a full-size refrigerator by himself. He's also shaped like a refrigerator, but that's inconsequential. Alright guys, we are at number 1, and my number 1 event that I want to see in strongman, get ready for this, I want to see a wall crash. I want to see the strongest men in the world breaking through a wall, a brick wall, like the Kool-Aid Man, or the Incredible Hulk. Now, okay, obviously they're not going to be able to break through a brick wall, but what if you had a thin layer of concrete? What if you had several thin layers of concrete with a little space in between them? Kind of like how people karate chop concrete boards. This would be one of the most insane things, in my opinion, to see another human being do. So I would love to see this happen in strongman. This is another event, though, that is going to be hard to do safely, because obviously when you're trying to run at walls for force, usually bad things happen. But we're talking about the strongest men in the world. They ought to be able to move their body around and destroy some things, you know what I'm saying? Alright guys, that is the end of the list. Thank you so much for watching. If you can think of another event that you would like to see in strongman that's completely new and has never been done before, then please leave it in the comments. Once again, thank you guys so much for watching. If you've not subscribed to the channel, please do so. And I will see you later. Go make the world a better place.
Bit of meat, wait a lot, huh? Jesus taught me how to eat. My strength, it don't got no peak. You don't really wanna mess with me. I'ma hit you with these feet. Guess what, huh? I get to running with these feet. I get to running. And Jesus taught me how to eat.
How freaking awesome would that be to see Brian Shaw